Okay, Bismillah, we're live.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام الأتمان الأكملان على محمد رسول الله سيد الأولين والآخرين وإمام الأنبياء والمرسلين والشافع المشفع يوم الدين، وعلى آله الطيبين وأزواجه الطاهرات أمهات المؤمنين وصحابته الغر الميامين ومن استنى بسنته واهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، حياكم الله أيها الإخوة والأخوات إلى هذا اللقاء المكمل للقاء الماضي المتعلق بالكسب من مال حلال أو من عمل مباح والإنفاق على الأهل من زوجة وأولاد.
Indeed, all praises are due to Allah, and may the most complete and full salutations be showered upon Muhammad, the messenger of Allah, the leader of the first and the last, the imam of the prophets and messengers, the intercessor whose intercession will be accepted on the day of recompense, and may those peace and salutations also be showered upon his good and pure wives, and upon his good family and distinguished companions, and those who take his example as an example to be followed, and seek his guidance as guidance to be followed until the day of recompense to proceed. I welcome you all listeners. Is there an echo? Sorry, I can hear my... شيخنا هل هناك تردد في الصوت؟
لا ما أسمع الصدى.
Alhamdulillah. So I welcome you all, brothers and sisters, to tonight's lecture, where it is a completion of last week's lecture, where we looked at the manners and etiquettes of earning. And we will talk about the earning from the halal, the earning that is permissible, and the type of work that is permissible, and the way in which an individual should pay for their family, their upkeep, and for them in a general way. نعم شيخنا.
في لقائنا الماضي تحدثنا عن الكسب الحلال وضرورة أن يكتسب المسلم، وقد قال الله عز وجل في سورة المؤمنون: يا أيها الرسل كلوا من الطيبات واعملوا صالحا. وقال سبحانه وتعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا. أمر الأنبياء في آية المؤمنون، وأمر المؤمنين عامة في آية البقرة، قال: يا أيها الذين آمنوا كلوا من طيبات ما رزقناكم، الآية 172. فالله عز وجل أمر بالأكل من الطيب، يعني الكسب، الإنسان يكسب من الطيب. وجاء في حديث أبي هريرة عند مسلم قال رضي الله عنه: قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: إن الله طيب لا يقبل إلا طيبا، وإن الله أمر المؤمنين بما أمر به المرسلين، فقال تعالى: يا أيها الرسل كلوا من الطيبات واعملوا صالحا. الآية من سورة المؤمنون، آية 51. وقال تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا كلوا من طيبات ما رزقناكم، الآية 172 من سورة البقرة. قال أبو هريرة: ثم ذكر، أي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، ثم ذكر الرجل يطيل السفر أشعث أغبر يمد يديه إلى السماء. ذكر 3 أسباب لقبول الدعاء: السفر، وكونه أشعث أغبر، وكونه يمد يديه إلى السماء، لأن هذه من آداب الدعاء. 3 أسباب لقبول الدعاء، إلا أن هذا الإنسان الذي جاء بأسباب 3 لقبول الدعاء لا يقبل دعاءه. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم: ويمد يديه إلى السماء: يا رب يا ربي، ومطعمه حرام ومشربه حرام وغذي بالحرام، فأنى يستجاب له؟ يعني كيف يستجاب لمثله؟ فهذا يدل على أن الإنسان ينبغي أن يكتسب من كسب حلال حتى إذا دعا استجيبت دعوته، وأيضا ليحمي نفسه وذريته ومن يعول من عقوبة الكسب الحرام، فقد قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: أيما جسد نبت من سحت فالنار أولى به. نسأل الله العافية.
So in this regard, in the regard of tonight's lecture, it will be in some respects a completion of the last lecture. And in last week's lecture, we looked at the earning that is halal and the necessity for the man, for the individual to do so. And in this regard, we mentioned that which Allah the Most High has ordered he ordered the prophets to do in the chapter of the believers, where Allah the Most High said that which means, O prophets, eat from that good that we have provided for you and do the good deeds. And he mentioned Allah the Most High in a similar verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, the chapter of the cow, verse number 102, where Allah the Most High said, O you who have believed, eat the goodness, that which we have provided for you, yes, so eat, so eat from the good things that we have provided for you. And the meaning of this eating from the goodness is that the individual, they should have good, or they should sustain themselves with that which is good. So that which nourishes them, that which provides for them, it should all be good, meaning it should be taken from that which is permissible. And we see from the hadith, the narration reported and collected by Imam Muslim on the authority of Abu Hurairah, where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, indeed, Allah is good, and he does not accept except that which is good. So Allah is good, and he does not accept or those things except those good things. And then the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he recited the two verses that we have just mentioned. O prophets, eat from the good things and do the good righteous deeds. And then he mentioned, may peace and blessings be upon him, O you who have believed, eat from the good things, those things that we have provided for you. And then the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, mentioned a man who was on a journey. So they'd been on a long journey, and they were in a state in which they were disheveled, and they were in a state in which they had faced a portion of the punishment. So they'd traveled, so they were in a disheveled state, and they had sand, and they weren't in a good state. And then on top of this, they raised their hands to the sky to make dua, to supplicate to Allah the Most High. And then, despite this, these are four reasons, or there are four means that make the dua, that make the supplication even more likely to be answered. So the first was that the individual, this man, he was on a journey. The second, that he was in a destitute state, or that he was disheveled, and there was sort of sand all over him. So that's the second and the third. And the fourth, that he raised his hands to Allah, to the sky. And then he supplicated to Allah. So these are four reasons that make the supplication more likely to be accepted. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessings be upon him, said that Allah will, but this individual, describing them, they were nourished with that which was impermissible, and they earned from that which was impermissible. So how can it be that their dua, their supplication, will be answered? So despite all of these factors that make it more likely for the individual's supplication to be answered, because they'd been sustained, they'd eaten, and because their sustenance was impermissible, then it rendered their dua, their supplication, unanswerable. So we should pay particular attention from this hadith to protect our wealth, and protect also not just the wealth, but that which we sustain those people who are dependent upon us, that we provide for them from that which is good. And this is because the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whichever body has been nourished by that which is impermissible, then the fire is more deserving for it, or the fire will overtake it, or is more deserving for it. Naam, Shaykhana. Oh, Abdul Hakim, have we lost Sheikh?
No, he's with us now. It just popped up, but alhamdulillah, he's back with us, so we can continue.
sorry. السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
المعذرة. Sorry for what happened.
أبدا شيخنا، حياكم الله.
نعم، أين وصلنا؟
وصلنا بعد الحديث أيما جسد
نبت من تحت.
نعم.
قال الإمام ابن دقيق العيد في شرحه على متن الأربعين النووية عند هذا الحديث، قال رحمه الله تعالى: هذا الحديث أحد الأحاديث التي عليها قواعد الإسلام ومباني الأحكام، وفيه الحث على الإنفاق من الحلال والنهي عن الإنفاق من غيره، وأن المأكول والمشروب والملبوس ونحوها ينبغي أن يكون حلالا خالصا لا شبهة فيه.
The scholar of Islam, Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, he has a commentary on the 40 ahadith, the 40 narrations that were collected or compiled by Imam al-Nawawi. And he writes, commenting on this hadith, that this hadith is one of the great ahadith that form the principles, the major principles and pillars of Islam, because it shows us that the individual, they should earn and they should also spend upon their family from that which is permissible. So this includes the things that one eats, the things that one drinks, and also the clothing that an individual wears. So it's necessary for the individual to make sure that all of these things are halal for themselves and for their dependents. And it also shows us that we should not have any doubts from the sources of these three things. So we should make them from that which is halal, that which is permissible, and there is no doubt in its permissibility.
وبعد أن نعلم أن المسلم مطالب بالعمل والكسب ومزهد في التذلل للناس بطلب الصدقة والمعونة، إذا علمنا ذلك لازم أن نعلم أن الله مايز بين الرجال والنساء بأن الرجال يكتسبون وينفقون، كما قال الله عز وجل في سورة المائدة في الآية 34 منها، قال سبحانه وتعالى: الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم بهذا فضل الرجال على النساء. فإذا لم يقم الرجل بالسبب الذي فضل أو بأحد الأسباب التي فضل من أجلها على المرأة، فإنه يخسر هذا التفضيل. فلا بد أن ينفق على المرأة، ولو كانت المرأة غنية، ولو كانت ذات مال، فإنه لا بد أن يكتسب وينفق على أهله كما سنبينه في النصوص القادمة.
So after we see this, and after we realize that the believer is ordered and required to earn a good living and a halal living, and they're encouraged to do so, we understand from this that they are not ordered or they are not encouraged to seek charity from others, and they should seek to be independent and live their own lives without being in need of others. شيخنا بارك الله فيكم، الآية في أي سورة؟ في سورة المؤمنون؟
لا، هذه بسورة النساء الآية 34. المؤمنون الآية 51 في الحديث السابق.
بارك الله فيكم.
أيها الرسل كلوا من الطيبات.
بارك الله فيكم شيخنا. نعم وجدت. And we find that Allah the Most High, He distinguished the men with two things. Firstly, the fact that they are ordered to earn money to sustain their families. And the second, that they are ordered then to use this wealth to spend upon their family in a responsible way. And this is as Allah the Most High mentions in the chapter of the women, verse 34. He says that, which means men are the caretakers of women, as men, or by the right of what Allah has given one over the other, i.e. the right of what Allah has given men over the women, and what they spend for maintenance from their wealth. So righteous women are devoutly obedient, guarding in the husband's absence what Allah would have them guard. So we see here that Allah the Most High, He has made it the men's distinguishing feature that the men do two things. They earn from that which is halal, and then they spend upon their family to upkeep the family. And if the man does not do this, i.e. the man does not earn and then spend upon the family, then they lose this special status that they are able to gain. And this is the case irrespective of the financial status or the material status of the woman. So even if the woman is rich in and of herself and she can sustain herself and she has money, then the man is still in this position where he must earn and he must pay for her upkeep.
ومما يدل على لزوم نفقة الرجل على المرأة على زوجته وأولاده قول ربنا عز وجل في سورة البقرة في الآية 33 بعد 200. قال تعالى: وعلى المولود له رزقهن وكسوتهن بالمعروف. المولود له هو الوالد، لأن الأم هي الوالدة، هي التي تلد، وهذا الولد لذلك الوالد، فلهذا يلزم ذلك الوالد الإنفاق على الأم وجنينها لما كان في بطنها، وعلى الأم ووليدها لما وضعته، ويعني باستمرار. نعم.
And the necessity for the man to pay this upkeep is also mentioned in the verse, in the chapter of the cow, verse 233, where Allah the Most High says that which means, and upon the father, and upon the father is a duty, or upon the father's heir is a duty like that of the father, meaning that they must keep, or they must carry on paying for and giving maintenance for the mother. So, beg your pardon. So the verse again, the child's father, this is the verse of the Quran, the child's father will provide reasonable maintenance and clothing for the mother during that period. So they must carry on paying the upkeep for the child, the mother and the child during that period. That's the verse.
ومما يدل على لزوم الإنفاق على الزوجة والذرية قول ربنا عز وجل في الآية 7 من سورة الطلاق: لينفق ذو سعة من سعته ومن قدر عليه رزقه فلينفق مما آتاه الله. ففي هذه الآية بين الله عز وجل أن الإنفاق لازم على الرجل، إن كان ميسور الحال غنيا كثير المال ينفق بقدر غناه، لا ينفق ببخل كإنفاق الفقير. وأما إذا كان فقيرا فإنه تلزمه النفقة لكن بالقدر الذي يستطيعه، وهذا يدل على لزوم نفقة الرجل على أهل بيته من زوجة وذرية.
And another indication that the man, it's upon the man and obligatory for the man to pay upkeep for his family is the seventh verse in the chapter of the divorce, where Allah the Most High says, that which means, let a man of wealth spend from his wealth, and he whose provision is restricted, let him spend from that which Allah has given him. So this is something that is proportionate. The rich man should spend in proportion to his money and his wealth, and the poor man, they should spend in proportion to theirs. So this is something, again, that emphasizes the obligation of the man paying for his family and upkeep and supporting the upkeep of his family, irrespective of whether they are rich or poor. It's something that is in accordance to their means.
وليعلم المسلم أن إنفاقه على أهل بيته لن ينقص من ماله شيئا، بل إن الله سيخلفه. قال الله عز وجل في سورة 7 في الآية 39: وما أنفقتم من شيء فهو يخلفه وهو خير الرازقين.
And with this being the case, the man or the individual who is paying the upkeep for their family, the Muslim, they should realize and be aware of the fact that when they make this upkeep and they make these payments for their family, it's something that does not actually decrease their wealth. And Allah the Most High says that which means in the chapter of Sheba, verse number 39, Allah says that which means, but whatever thing you spend in his cause, he will compensate it, and he is the best of providers. So this money is compensated by Allah the Most High.
وفي الصحيحين من حديث أبي مسعود البدري رضي الله تعالى عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال: إذا أنفق الرجل على أهله نفقة وهو يحتسبها، يعني يحتسبها عند الله، بمعنى أنه لا ينفق ويمن على الزوجة أعطيتك وأعطيتك، أو ينفق ويجد الحسرة في قلبه أنه أعطاها، أو أنه يتألم يقول هذه تطلب. قال: إذا أنفق الرجل على أهله نفقة وهو يحتسبها كانت له صدقة. ولننظر الآن الصدقة ما فوائدها. يقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أن المتصدق يأتي يوم القيامة يستظل بظل صدقته. 1. 2. أن الصدقة تخرج من يمين المؤمن فتقع في يمين الرحمن فينميها له كما ينمي، أي يربيها يكبرها الله عز وجل كما ينمي أحدنا فلوه أو فصيله، يعني صغير الإبل أو صغير الفرس، كيف تعتني به حتى يكبر يكون قويا. وأيضا جاء في حديث أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه المخرج في الصحيحين أيضا أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: ما من يوم يصبح العباد فيه إلا ملكان ينزلان فيقول أحدهما اللهم أعطي منفقا خلفا، أي يخلف عليه خيرا مما أنفق، ويقول الآخر اللهم أعطي ممسكا تلفا، أي اتلف ماله الذي بخل به ولم ينفق منه.
So the Muslim should also realize and believe that this paying for the family is something that's good, that can bring about good for them. So we've established that it's something that does not decrease them in wealth, and we also see in the hadith of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that's been reported by Imam Bukhari and Muslim on the authority of Abu Mas'ud al-Badri, that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, indeed, when one of you spends upon their family, so they spend money for the upkeep of their family, and they reckon the reward from Allah. So when they spend this money, they don't feel heaviness in their heart, nor do they say to their wife or their children, look, I've spent this much, I've spent that much. Rather, they seek the reward from Allah the Most High, and it's with this intention that they pay their upkeep. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, it's accepted as an act of charity from that individual. So this spending upon the family and their upkeep is actually a form of charity. And we know about the benefits of giving in charity. The first of them is that in the hereafter, on the day of resurrection, the individual who gives in charity will be shaded by the charity that they gave. Secondly, there is the hadith of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that when the individual gives in charity, it goes from their right hand to the right hand of Ar-Rahman, meaning Allah the Most High. And Allah the Most High cultivates that charity, the small charity that they give, just as we, or just as the Arabs would cultivate and raise the small young camels. So Allah will cultivate that charity until it multiplies and it becomes something big and it's strengthened. And then also the third benefit of giving in charity, from the hadith, the narration that's been reported by Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, indeed, there is no day except that two angels descend upon the slave of Allah, and one of them will say, or they will say one of two things. One will say, oh Allah, give the one who gives, so the one who gives in charity, give them better than that which they've given. And the other one will say, oh Allah, the one who doesn't give and who is miserly, then destroy their wealth and allow their wealth not to succeed and flourish.
وفي الحديث عند مسلم من حديث أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه مرفوعا: دينار أنفقته في سبيل الله، ودينار أنفقته في رقبة، أي في عتق رقبة، في سبيل الله أي في تجهيز غازة، ودينار أنفقته في رقبة أي في عتق رقبة، ودينار تصدقت به على مسكين، ودينار أنفقته على أهلك. هذه أربعة نفقات كل منها تكفل أجرا عند الله. لكن ما الأعظم أجرا؟ قال أعظمها أجرا الذي أنفقته على أهلك.
And we see from the hadith, the narration that's been collected by Imam Muslim, may Allah have mercy upon him, and it's a hadith that was reported by the companion of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, Abu Huraira, that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, a dinar that you have given in charity in the way of Allah, also a dinar that you have paid for the freedom of a slave, a dinar that you have paid for the poor or destitute, and also a dinar that you have paid for your family and their upkeep. All of these are forms of charity. And the best of these forms of charity and the greatest of them in terms of their reward is that which the individual pays for the upkeep of their family.
هل عرفوا الدينار؟ يعرفون الدينار؟
لعلهم. So the dinar is it's the monetary unit that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, would have used. So it's the money that they spent at that time.
نعم، لأن الدينار أكبر من الدرهم، الدينار يكون من الذهب.
Because a dinar is more than a dirham. You have the dirham and you have the dinar, and the dinar is from gold. والدرهم شيخنا؟
نعم، وعند نعم
الدينار من الذهب والدرهم يعني
والدرهم من الفضة.
فائدة ما شاء الله. So the dinar is a monetary unit from gold, and the dirham, the smaller unit, is a monetary unit from silver.
وعند مسلم في الصحيح وغيره عن ثوبان مولى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مرفوعا: أفضل دينار ينفقه الرجل دينار ينفقه على عياله، ودينار ينفقه على دابته في سبيل الله، ودينار ينفقه على أصحابه في سبيل الله. قال أبو قلابة عبد الله بن زيد الجرمي التابعي الجليل قال: بدأ بالعيال، ثم قال أبو قلابة: وأي رجل أعظم أجرا من رجل ينفق على عيال صغار يعفهم الله أو ينفعهم الله به ويغنيهم. يعني لا أحد أفضل من هذا الذي ينفق على أهله وأولاده.
And in the hadith that's been reported by Imam Muslim and other than he, on the authority of Thawban, that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, the best dinar, the best money or wealth that an individual will pay is upon his family, and then the money that they will pay for their mount, meaning their ride, their camel, in the way of Allah, and then the money that they spend on their companions, their friends, in the way of Allah. And then Abu Qilaba, one of the narrators, he said, look, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, started this hadith by stating the best dinar being that which the individual spends on their family. And who is greater, which man is greater in reward than those who pay for the upkeep of their family and their children, meaning that their children are not in need of others and their children are not destitute, meaning there is no one better than those who pay this type of charity.
وأيضا وفي الحديث عند البخاري ومسلم من حديث سعد بن أبي وقاص رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال له، أي لسعد: وإنك لن تنفق نفقة تبتغي بها وجه الله إلا أجرت عليها حتى ما تجعله في امرأتك، أي في فمها من الطعام، ما تطعمه زوجتك، على أنك مأمور به إلا أنك تؤجر عليه.
And in the hadith collected by Imam Bukhari and Muslim on the authority of Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, may Allah be pleased with him, that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said to him, indeed you, O Sa'ad, you will not get anything, you do not pay anything, any money that you seek Allah's face, that you seek Allah's reward, that is greater. You'll not pay anything that you sit through. You will not give anything in charity that you will seek Allah's reward for, except that you will be rewarded for it. Even that thing, even the food that you put in your wife's mouth, even this will be counted as charity for you.
وفي الأخير لا بد أن نوصي كل من الزوج والزوجة في باب الإنفاق بأمرين: الأول أن الزوجة إذا كان زوجها مقتدرا لكنه كان شحيحا بخيلا، فإن هذا لا ينبغي أن يكون سببا لإحداث المشاكل والطلاق وغيره. ولكن نوصيها بما أوصى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم هند زوجة أبي سفيان. قال في حديث أم المؤمنين عائشة رضي الله عنها، وهو مخرج في الصحيحين وعند أحمد المسند وأصحاب السنن، قال جاءت هند، قالت عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت جاءت هند إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقالت يا رسول الله إن أبا سفيان رجل شحيح لا يعطيني ما يكفيني وولد إلا ما أخذت من ماله، يعني من غير علمه وهو لا يعلم، إلا ما أخذت من ماله وهو لا يعلم. فقال صلى الله عليه وسلم خذي ما يكفيك وولدك بالمعروف. وبالمعروف أي لا تتخطي حدود ما يكفيك وولدك من حاجة، فإذا تخطيت عدت تلك سرقة. لكن إذا كانت بقدر الحاجة فلا تأثم الزوجة إن أخذت من مال زوجها دون علمه. لكن لا ينبغي أن تختلق المشاكل التي تولد آثارا نفسية سيئة على الأطفال، وتصل أيضا بالزواج إلى نهاية سيئة وهي الطلاق. وهذا إرشاد نبوي كريم لمن كان زوجها بخيلا شحيحا. لكن إذا كان غير مقتدر، يعني يعمل كثيرا وبالكاد يحصل ما يدفع به أجرة البيت والكهرباء والمواصلات والطعام، وهي تريد أن تشتري ثوبا جديدا أو نعلا جديدا أو فرشا جديدا، فإنها لا ينبغي أن تتخذ من هذا سببا لزعزعة استقرار الأسرة، بل تصبر لأن زوجها فقير، كما كان ابن مسعود فقيرا وزوجته تصبر ولم تحتج عليه. أسأل الله أن يهدي الأزواج والزوجات جميعا لما يكون فيه صالح الأسرة المسلمة وترابطها وإلفتها.
So we mentioned, as we draw to a close to this sitting, we've mentioned some advice that we put forward to the husband and the wife. First off, for the wife, if your husband has wealth, but he is stingy in paying for the family and the upkeep, then this isn't something that problems should arise from. And the advice for this is as the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, advised Hind. And we find this from the hadith reported by Aisha, collected by Imam Bukhari and Muslim and Imam Ahmed, and also the Imams of the 4 books of Sunnah, that Hind went to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and she said, O Messenger of Allah, indeed Abu Sufyan is a miserly man. He's stingy. He doesn't give enough in his wealth that will suffice me and my son. So she was seeking his advice. He doesn't give me enough. And then the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, gave her that prophetic advice. And he said, take from his wealth that which suffices you and your son in that which is good. And what does it mean in that which is good? I.e., that which will suffice you. So don't take more than you need to, but take just enough. So if a woman finds herself in this situation, then it's permissible for her to take that which she needs without her husband knowing. However, if she takes more than that which she needs, then this is something without his knowing, then this she has gone over the bounds, and this is to be considered as stealing from his wealth. So this is the prophetic advice that he gave to the women in this situation, and he advised not to cause problems that will potentially make it difficult for the children, or could potentially leave or lead to the marriage breaking down. As for if the man is working and he's trying his hardest, and despite these efforts, he only has enough money to pay the rent, for example, and the bills, utility bills, etc., then this is something that the wife should have patience upon. So she shouldn't be pressurizing him or wanting new clothes and new shoes, etc., all the time. Rather, she should be patient upon this condition. And this was as the condition was of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him, that he was a poor individual and he could just about pay upkeep for his family. So he was poor. And in reality, if your husband is struggling to make ends meet and is working, but can just about pay the rent and the utility bills, then the actual fact is that he is poor.
وآخر نصيحة نوجهها للزوجين معا وكذلك للأبناء، وهي الاعتدال في النفقة. فإن الله عز وجل وصف المؤمنين كما في آية سورة الفرقان، وصف المؤمنين، والمؤمنون هم والزوج والزوجة والذرية إن كانوا من أهل الإسلام فهم المؤمنون المخاطبون. قال الله عز وجل: والذين إذا أنفقوا لم يسرفوا ولم يقتروا وكان بين ذلك قواما. وقال ابن بطال رحمه الله تعالى: ينفق على نفسه وأهله ومن تلزمه النفقة عليه غير مقتر عما يجب لهم ولا مسرف في ذلك، كما قال الله تعالى: والذين إذا أنفقوا لم يسرفوا ولم يقتروا وكان بين ذلك قواما. وهذه النفقة، يقول ابن بطال، وهذه النفقة أفضل من الصدقة ومن جميع النفقات. انتهى كلامه من كتابه طرح التثريب.
And finally, the advice that we give is advice that's to both the partners, and also it's advice to the children. And that is this, that and that is this, and that's the moderacy in paying and in giving this sustenance and providing for the family, and not going over the limits. And Allah the Most High describes this in the chapter of the criterion, where he describes the believers. And indeed, the believers here, it's encompassing of all the believers and the respective roles that they fulfill. So, for example, the husband, the wives, the children, and Allah describes the believers, saying that which means, and they are, meaning the believers are those who, when they spend, they do so not excessively nor sparingly, but are ever between that, just and moderate. So when they spend their money, they do so justly. And the scholar of Islam, Ibn Battal, he gives a commentary about this verse, and he says that they pay in a moderate way, or they spend and provide for their family in a moderate way. And this type of payment, and then he mentioned the verse that we've just said, and they are those who, when they spend, do so not excessively nor sparingly, but are ever between that, justly moderate. And then he went on to say that this paying and this giving for their family is from the best forms of giving charity, and it's from the best forms of spending one's money and one's wealth. And this is where his speech stopped. Or end of quote.
Jazakallah. We have a few questions. So when you're ready for the questions, you ready for them? Okay. One of the questions is that, let me see if I can understand it correctly, is that my husband works but is happy with being poor and doesn't want to doesn't want to work harder, basically, to have a better life. So what should she do in that situation? Should she accept that he's happy with his way of life as it is and do not want to increase, or or should she move on? Because I think she has a better standard of life, to be honest. Why I think she has a better standard of life, but he is happy with just doing his part-time work, but she wants more.
So she wants a better standard of life.
She wants better standard of living, but he's not, he's happy with where he is.
So should she move on? Should she divorce? Should she ask for a divorce?
She wants to move on because of this.
اوكي. شيخنا هناك أخ يشتغل كيف أقول ليس دائما أو 5 أيام في الأسبوع، لكن نسمى هنا جزئيا، يعني لا يشتغل كامل الأسبوع لكن جزءا من الأسبوع، ويكتسب ويدفع، ولكنه مع هذا هو فقير، والرجل لا يريد أن يتقدم في شغل ولا يريد أن يشتغل أكثر. ومن خلال السؤال أفهم أنه ينفق على عياله، ولكن الزوجة تريد أكثر، يعني المستوى أكثر من الحياة الذي لديهم. فهل يحل لها أن تطلب الطلاق؟ ماذا تفعل هي؟
نعم. أولا قلنا بأن الإنفاق الواجب على الزوج هو بقدر استطاعته، كما قال الله عز وجل: لينفق ذو سعة من سعته ومن قدر عليه رزقه فلينفق مما آتاه الله. فإذا كان ينفق بقدر ما يستطيع، بقدر ما آتاه الله، وهذا أقل من مطمح الزوجة، فإن هذا ليس سببا كافيا لطلبها الطلاق. ثانيا، الرزق كما جاء في الحديث الصحيح عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال: إن روح القدس أي جبريل نفث في روحي، أي أخبرني أن نفسا لن تموت حتى تستكمل رزقها وأجلها الذي كتب لها، فأجملوا في الطلب، أي لا تستغرقوا أوقاتكم في السعي وراء المزيد من الكسب. وقال صلى الله عليه وسلم: الأجل والرزق يسعيان وراء صاحبهما، يعني أنهما يلحقان ومدركانه لا محالة، كما أن الموت سيدركه فإن الرزق سيدركه. وما دام أن الزوج يكتسب بالقدر الذي يكفي لعدم مد اليد للحاجات الضرورية، عدم مد اليد للناس للسؤال، فإن هذا لا يلام على ما فوق ذلك. وإن كان يعني كسبه قليل ولكن أوقات العمل كثيرة، أيضا لا يلام. وإذا كان يكتسب بالقدر الذي بالكاد يكفي، ثم هو يريد أن يتفرغ للعبادة وطلب العلم والقيام على الأسرة، فإن هذا أيضا لا يلام، بل هو يعني أمر حسن، لأن المهمة العظمى للإنسان في الدنيا هو ليس الاكتساب من أجل التوسع في الرفاهية، وإنما هو التكسب بقدر ما يقوم البدن ويعبد به الله عز وجل، كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: بحسب امرئ لقيمات يقمن صلبه. فلا ينبغي للمسلم أن يستغرق وقته كله وراء الدنيا. بعض الناس يعمل 16 ساعة ثم يأتي منهك القوى، فلا يكاد يجالس أهله ولا يسامرهم ولا يعرف ما جرى في البيت، يصل منهكا متعبا فيلقى جسدا وجثة هامدة على سريره فينام، إلى أن يأتي وقت الاستيقاظ للدوام، فيذهب للدوام للعمل وهلم جر، فهو صار كما يقال عندنا في المثل كجمل المعصرة، كالجمل الذي يدور على الراحة ليعصر فيها الزيت. فهذا لا ينبغي وينبغي للمرأة العاقلة المسلمة أن تعين زوجها على عدم إنهاك جسده وراء الدنيا من أجل أن يتقوى على طاعة الله وعلى طلب العلم. هذا الذي ينبغي، لأن الله عز وجل يقول تعاونوا على البر والتقوى. أسأل الله أن يصلح أحوالهما ويؤلف بين قلبيهما ويرزقهما حياة طيبة وكفاية وقناعة.
So in response to this question, our Shaykh Hafidahullah, he said that, so firstly, the individual, they must pay what is wajib upon them, what is obligatory upon them. And if they do so, then that is what is obligatory upon them. So if they pay their upkeep for the family, and the family are not in need of others, then this is the extent to which their obligation is. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he said that indeed the angel Gabriel, he told me that there is no soul that will die or perish until they attain their sustenance. And that sustenance that was written for them and the provisions that were written for them, they will not escape them. And also the fact, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, also said that the lifespan and the provisions of a person will not escape them. So each and every individual will get that which Allah the Most High ordained for them. And it's preceded in the verse of the Quran, in the verse of the divorce, that Allah the Most High said that which means, let a man of wealth spend from his wealth, and let he whose provision is restricted, let him spend from that which Allah has given them. Allah does not charge a soul or burden a soul beyond what he has given it. And indeed, Allah, after hardship, will bring about ease. So this this amount that's obligatory upon them to pay, it's dependent on the individual's capacity to pay it. So as long as him and the family, they're not in need and they're not going and asking for charity, then this is sufficient and it's enough. And if the individual, he's working part-time and he's just working for a few days in the week, and then he leaves the other days, and this is sufficient for his family, it's sufficient for his family, and then he uses the other time that he's free to worship Allah and to study, then this is something that's not blameworthy, rather it's something that is good. So it's something that's good, because the individual is not spending their life, and the intent behind life is not that the individual can progress through the ranks of the worldly life and to accumulate wealth. Rather, what they're doing is that they're getting enough of their provisions and enough wealth so that they can live, and they can be without need of others. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said that it's enough for an individual to eat that which will keep them, or that which will help support them, keep their body. So this is the extent to which the individual is ordered to work and to earn. And it might be that some individuals, they might work 16 hours a day, a long shift. And then when they get back from work, they're too tired to do anything with their family. So they just rest, they eat, and then they sleep with little or no interaction with their families. And then the next day they wake up and they go for work again. And on this cycle, which they have a term for it in Arabic, which I suppose is similar to the daily grind in English, or being on the hamster wheel. So going round and round, they do this until until they're in the system, and this is their sole focus. So the advice to the wife should be to help him in this pursuit, so that if he is working for part of the week, and it's sufficient for them, that this is fine, and this is something that she should support him in if he wants to use the other time to worship Allah and to study, and that they should not be too focused and concentrated on the worldly life and the material life. And this is a part of cooperating with one another upon goodness and piety. So I ask Allah the Most High to bring the husband and wife together, and I ask him to give them good provisions and to make love enduring between them.
Jazakallah, Sheikh. Jazakallah. I think we'll leave it as that. But there was one question, but I don't know if it's if we have the time to answer it, because the question may need a talk in itself. But the question was, do you advise for
then we make it next week talk.
You want to make it next week talk? Okay, inshallah. We'll make it next week then, inshallah. Jazakallah.
حفظكم الله وبارك فيكم. جزاكم الله خيرا. جزاك الله خير عبد الحكيم. جزاك الله خير عقيل. Thank you, Tom, and all of you. جزاكم الله خير. بارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.